how's it going, everybody? This is Shaun
and Sarah,
and we're going to do a response video to the latest Anita Sarkeesian video, Damsels in Distress Part 2.
Trapped in the Closet.
Women in Video Games series. Yeah, call it Trapped in the Closet. And yeah, so we watched a new video. It's a little late, I suppose. I'm sure most people probably have their responses up, but fuck them. That's what happens when you have a life.
Oh yeah, I was syncing our schedules up.
Syncing our schedules up and stuff was just difficult, so we didn't get around to it like day one. And honestly, like, I didn't care this time. Like, I wasn't even
yeah, that's true.
But because so much time had gone by, like, since the first one, that like my ire about it, or my like general like caring about it, and especially considering that the last video was like, the way her arguments are presented and stuff are so like ineffective, and just like I was kind of just shrugged my shoulders. I was like, all right, whatever.
Yeah, I was the one that was just like harassing you, sending you messages like, gotta do this,
gotta do that. We gotta take Anita down.
Yeah,
as a joke, because it's like I'll watch these things with a pretty open mind and like just see what she has to say and how she says it and how she presents it. Because I think, like, certain things, like, is it a topic worthy of discussion? I mean, I don't think I don't think it is in the way that she frames it.
No,
because it's not. It's declarative rather than discussionary. Like, I don't think it's a foregone conclusion as far as she's concerned. Rather than it be like, okay, well, let's discuss these themes, let's discuss these tropes, and how they're interact with video games, and kind of.
And sometimes we'll throw in movies and comics. Sometimes.
And I think this video is a lot like the last one, where it's like, here's a bunch of examples, I'm not really going to make a point about any of it, and I'm going to take everything out of context.
It's kind of sloppy, too.
Oh, it's extremely sloppy, because, and we talked about this a little bit before, it's the big, and I don't know if we touched on this in the last video, the biggest problem with a video series like this is that she had her hypothesis before she made the series. She had a clear intent, what she was going to do. So this wasn't about like doing research or discovering something or doing it for the sake of cultural discussion or anything like that. This was like a foregone conclusion for her. When you do research like that, it leads you just to find the things that support your argument, because you already have your argument.
Right, and I don't think it doesn't, when you do things like that, because I'm guilty of doing that when I've researched things, sometimes. Because you like think of this idea and you want to prove it, I understand that, but at the same time, you ignore the flip side of the coin, or you kind of can't see where, like, the whole voice is coming from, because you want to find, those little, like, points that will...
Or you take things out of context.
Right,
and, like, because out of context, it looks like something that it maybe isn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. I guess that's why it seems kind of sloppy, but it also, I don't know, like...
Well, that's what I mean. Like this is like, and I've heard people equate, like, this, like, if this was like a high school project, it's like a C. It's like a B, it's like a C+, maybe a B, because, like
78.
Just because, like, there's production value, right? Like, so, like, she's gonna, like, well... production value. There is some production value to it, like, it's well edited, it's well, like, whatever, like...
I mean, I'm sorry, I'm not wearing the same shirt from the last response video.
Yeah. It's not, like, overly long. Another 25 minutes, which I think is a good length for something like this, because you want to, like... But I think it would be a good length if, like, we were talking about having a discussion.
Yep.
Not just, like, throwing a bunch of things at me and saying, well, this is how it is. Like, because it's unfair. Like you said, it's ignoring the flip side of the coin. Well, I guess, like, where do you want to start? With, as far as, like, the recent video is about modern examples of the damsel in distress and how they're used, and kind of the extremes are taken to in the sake of being edgy and differentiating themselves from other video games, because, well, let's face it, like, stories are stories. Across all media, a lot of things use the same tropes and the same genres, and blah, blah, blah.
To speak in her terms. And then also it brings up something from a shorter video, or another video she had, not a shorter video, but another video she had where it was a phrase coined by Gail Simone.
Gail Simone, a comic book writer from the late 90s.
Right, and it's the women in the refrigerator.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and that's what it touches upon mostly towards the end of it, was that
it's like the second half.
Yeah, the second half of it. So I guess that's kind of where this, it was more modern, but it was also what they call the woman in the refrigerator, which I guess if no one really...
It's just using the death of a female character as, like, a propellant of the character's personal arc.
Right.
And adding complexity to your protagonist, which it does, in my opinion. Like,
yeah.
And the thing, like, even that list that Gail Simone has, there's a website. I'm sure you can just Google "woman in the fridge" and it'll probably come up.
Or it's actually, if you watch the Anita video, which is on the Feminist Frequency thing, she shows the website.
She shows the website, yeah. And the thing about that is, and it's just kind of the same. I'm not sure. I don't know anything about Gail Simone's like intention with that website. Whether she was doing it for like, well, this is an interesting thing I noticed. Here's some examples of it. Here's the examples. The ready examples of it, like, let's discuss it.
Right.
Like, I'm not really sure as far as, like, what her intention was, so I'm not going to speak to that. But I think it's very similar, and it's obviously somebody Anita looks up to a great deal, but it's a similar type of style, where she, like, has, like, you know, maybe 100, 150 examples of all comic books.
Right.
Comic books, there's thousands of comic books published every year.
No.
But that's so it's a small cross section. Like
it's like we said last time. It's a cherry picking of.
Yes, it is. It is, and I think because you could take this style and make any claim about kind of any social injustice or anything you feel and find it in something. If you're looking for something, you'll be able to find it usually.
What was I bringing up? Sonic the Hedgehog. Why aren't we talking about these trapped little animals that Sonic has to free? They have to wait for this goddamn hedgehog and fox.
Yeah, why can't these animals
liberate themselves?
Free themselves, which I don't know. Make the correlation between.
No, but I'm just saying. So you could talk about animal rights. You could talk about racism.
I think you could. I think you probably even have a stronger leg to stand on. Like if you were talking about like. Not like a racism in video games. A lot of that is like you got to put it in context. Like, okay, who are the creators of video games traditionally, and who have come up in like usually fucking white males?
Yeah,
like,
it's the same as the authors of all the great books.
Generally,
dead white guys.
Dead white guys. Yeah, that's what people say. You know, like in reference to when you bring something up that somebody wrote a long time ago. Like, all you have is dead white men. Like. Yeah, it's probably usually true. I don't think it invalidates what they say.
No,
but
you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's like it's a convenient fact that looks bad. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
But it doesn't make it really any worse or better or anything like that. It doesn't. It's kind of inconsequential, honestly. You should be probably paying more attention to the social class of those writers if you want to like make some kind of argument like about their perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah. So where are we going with that? Well, it's like women in the fridge and how they're used in video games.
Right, and so it's talking about the more modern ones, and...
The one that she uses a lot is Dante's Inferno.
And Shadows of the Damned. But that's a whole other thing I think we should talk about separately with Suda in general.
Suda and, yeah.
Anyway. But, yeah, so Dante's Inferno, I find that funny because also, I guess, to link it, Shadows of the Damned is also kind of, like... highlights on sort of a Dante's Inferno kind of story.
It is.
You know?
There's crossover there.
It's crossover, and I just find it funny that she's using this game as this, like, you know, Beatrice, of course. It's the, you know, I guess who she's putting as the damsel in distress, which she kind of is. But not really in the story of Dante's Inferno. You kind of, like, the classic story of Dante's Inferno is you're going through...
The video game's different.
No, I didn't really...
Video game is a lot different.
But I'm just saying, like...
uses, like, the idea of going through the 7 circles of hell as, like, a way to, like...
7? Or is it 9?
I think we've talked about
that. Anyway.
Wherever. There are circles of hell. And they're used in the video game as, like, a way to be, like... levels, basically. Like, so, like, you're just descending into hell.
And you go through
to save the soul of your wife or girlfriend, and,
But it's just a classic story of, like, true romantic notion, and also, like, I think a moral, like, standpoint, too, to a point, and I think that's something that was bothering me in this video, too, is a lot of these things seem like you could talk about them, it's actually, like, a morality choice and decision, and...
Yeah. Well, that's the kind of a thing, like, I think, like...
It's not the fact that it's a woman or whatever. To me, it's always a question, a choice of morality.
Yes. Is this the right thing to do or not to do? I mean, like, I guess you could probably make the argument about, like, the way they're represented as, like, kind of weeping, helpless and weeping.
Dude,
like,
I'd be crying too if I was in the frozen center of hell.
That's true.
I hate the cold.
But, like, you know, like, I think there's some arguments maybe you could make. But only when you take things out of context. Like, that's, I guess the biggest problem I have is a lot of things are taken out of context. They're not discussed in a fair, even-keeled way. It's like, almost like, even though she has this very cold, clinical disposition, it's actually coming from an extremely emotional place.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean?
No.
But, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, because, like, you were bringing up Dishonored, which is a game I didn't really play.
Well, yeah, she brings up Dishonored about, like, you know, and, this is not really a spoiler, it takes place in the first 5 minutes of the game. There's an empress, she's in control of her kingdom or whatever, and she's murdered by, there's, like, a political coup going on, and she's murdered by these, like, kind of shadow assassins, and in the rest of the game, you're kind of tasked with saving her daughter.
Right.
I think she takes that out of context because, like, the fact of the matter is, like, in the game creators made the Empress, or the King, basically, because this could have happened, she could have been male or female, same thing could have happened, that her daughter could have been a son, and it could have propelled the plot in the same exact way. So there is, like, there's an element of being a little bit, like, more quote-unquote progressive, as far as, like, just casting the role of the King as an Empress. And then she gets killed because of a political coup that's going on, like this other faction trying to take control of the kingdom.
Yeah, I only saw a little bit of you playing the game.
Yeah,
I picked up on that immediately. That
and there's a lot of
some dirty politics going on.
The game is like, even though it's like kind of a stealth action game, there's
sweet masks.
Sweet masks. Like the subtext of that game is like political intrigue, right?
Yeah,
and that's. And the fact that I just don't think that was a fair point, because if you take that out of context and not actually talk about what it is in the game, it's not fair.
And then, something I found to go along the same lines with that is, you know, like I mentioned in the last video, Zelda's very dear to me. Yeah. And she, for a brief moment, when she was talking about how, like, it seems that women get possessed and have to be saved, and, like, ultimately their fate's decided by the male character or whatever. Yeah. She shows this scene from Twilight Princess, which is probably my second favorite Zelda game. And it's funny that she doesn't seem to touch on the fact that Midna, who is this female character, it's kind of like the less annoying Navi of that game. Yeah. She is a female that, you know, yeah, she's possessed too in a way by, you know, this guy or whatever, and, sorry, I don't want to get into it, but, like, you know, she only cares about the fate of an entire race or kingdom of Hyrule, or even the main protagonist, like, you know, Link, unless it suits her and her, like, whole agenda, unless it propels the help of the Twilight, you know, and that's why she helps him, or shows any emotion. Otherwise, she's this uncaring, kind of sarcastic, like, character. So it's like, things like that happen too, where it's like, it's kind of just a political agenda, you know, on one hand, but it's a female doing that to a male protagonist, like... Yeah. I like Midna, actually. But, like, I mean, so things like that, it's all like contextual thing, and it's crazy to me that it's so easily and readily ignored and accepted, sort of, in this discussion, or not even discussion, this it's not a discussion. That she is presenting. Yeah, it's not a discussion. It never will be. I mean, she'll take things like, she took the Max Payne series to task. She took that and God of War. God of War, yeah, it was Max Payne and God of War. Yeah, those were the other two she talked about a lot. Those are games that are referencing and working within genres. Yeah. If you want to make the argument that, like, well, maybe they're poorly written, or they're not, like, they don't subvert... Like, Max Payne is pretty funny.
Max Payne is not funny.
No.
Well, actually, Max Payne 3 is not anything like Max Payne 1 or 2. Yeah. Max Payne 3 is like a Grand Theft Auto game because it was made by Rockstar. The guys that made Max Payne 1 and 2 are Remedy, and they're like a fantastic studio, and they made like Alan Wake.
Well, I've only seen 3 when you were playing it the other night. And I was like, this is pretty silly.
Yeah, it's silly, exactly.
Like the club scene where you're just like walking around the
like, it's like you have to put that in context to be like, well, how do I gauge like how I take this seriously?
Yeah, it's a noir game, like you were saying, and then God of War, on the other hand, is a mythological thing, which is a discussion we had to get into with the whole last video.
And it's working within a trope.
Yeah.
So there's expected things that are in there.
From the females and the males.
Yes. And you can make the argument that, like, well, maybe they could have done better to subvert these expectations or these tropes. Sure, that's fine.
Right.
But to say that, like, they're just not allowed to be there, which is kind of what she infers. Like, it's just like, it's like, oh, and because at the end of the video, she's like, I'm not saying that women can't die in stories, but as long as they're on my terms. Or in my definition of what is moral and just in storytelling, and that's not fair. Like, you can make these arguments about movies, about music, about everything, right? I mean, like
99 problems.
Like for an example, like of like a good and bad example of like something working within a genre. You have your standard slasher flick, slasher movies, right? As being usually pretty not very well written and like kind of crappy, and every character's cannon fodder and stuff. But actually, in those, a lot of times the one that's living at the end is one of the female characters. Mm-hmm. And then so you could say, okay, on that hand, it's like poorly written. That works within the slasher/horror genre. And then you have
poorly written because the females.
And then you have something like Cabin in the Woods, which subverts your expectations about like what's supposed to happen, and what these characters go through and stuff like that. Like that's just a better written version of the same thing, pretty much.
And I think what we were saying, video game wise, that does that very well. BioShock Infinite.
BioShock Infinite is a good example of taking like what you
subverting it because
you think it's going to be a romance, and you think it's going.
Yeah, it's going to be a romance, and she's this caged bird. That's literally the
exactly.
imagery they use. Yeah. And then you have to like run her through all this like chaos going on, and then you find out in the end there's these two different. Well, there's infinite possibilities, but you find out that. Well, I guess.
Well, you can't really talk about.
Yeah, I know. Well, but you know, then it ends up not being what you expect.
Yes, exactly. Like, and that's it uses like these tropes and stuff like that because we're trained to accept it.
Turn itself on its head.
And turn itself on its head. Like that's a cool thing, but at the same time we have to have those tropes. We have to have all these other things in these media to be able to produce something like that.
It's the art of storytelling.
Exactly.
And that's how the art of storytelling
works.
That's how it's been ever since you
People
can look back historically.
Things,
Not even writing down things, just the oral epics,
or
and
even
stuff
oral
like
history.
That.
Yeah,
it's passed down, and it's the formulas, the familiarities, and they get adapted. I mean, that's how even like some can argue stories from like different mythologies of the gods got passed even on into like other developments of other religions. You adapt these like familiar epic stories, these tropes, if you will, and you use them to kind of like guide a vehicle of thought.
Yeah.
Be it your imagination, belief system, whatever.
Yeah.
That's just storytelling.
No, exactly.
Because there has to be familiarity with it, or we
can't connect to it.
Exactly. So what's the point?
Even in the most outlandish science fiction, if you don't have human-esque characters that have human traits and stuff like that, then it's really hard to care about them.
Right.
Like you have to have identifiable emotions, and to have identifiable emotions, you have to have like tragic things happen to them. You have to have these kind of this give and take kind of like part of life that you can like empathize with, that you can connect to. Like, if you lost somebody, like, and then a character loses somebody, maybe it's going to help you put them in yourself in their shoes a little bit, help you understand why these decisions are informed, or maybe just to expose it as a bad piece of writing.
And that's what's funny to me is I was thinking about when we were talking about or when I started thinking about these like morality-based games, or how these decisions are based on morality, and how she is kind of cherry-picking. I did bring up like the Fables, or like even like Catherine to a point, or like there's things in that can be discussed otherwise. But I'm just saying, or even like the Walking Dead game, that's fantastic.
Yeah,
these are all, but they're very obviously in your face moral decisions, but in the same point though, it's the same decisions you're making in these other games.
Well, I think that like
and while they're being masked,
because one's linear and one's more choice based, right? Like, but I think that's the trend of where games are going, and I don't think she gives that any credence or credit. Like, we're at a point with technology that we can have branching stories. We can have like we can as players can make these moral decisions. But to say that we have to take away some of those moral decisions defeats the purpose of having those decisions to make. Right. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think she takes into account like just the way that technology has advanced with video games, and this is a specific thing to video games, that we can actually be part of the creation of where these stories go.
The story, yeah.
We can take part in it, and that's like an awesome thing. And I think more and more and more, like that's what we're seeing where games are going. And I think all games are going to be kind of like that at some point. They're going to be less and less linear. There's going to be more choice and options as far as like what path you want to go to, how you want your character.
More like life.
More like life. Yes, exactly. Yes.
Anyway.
But just in fantastical settings. Or maybe not so fantastical settings anymore, because we're watching it all the time.
No, yeah.
But that's something that she doesn't like, and I think that should also be part of this discussion. Like, is there a progression? Have things changed? It's like almost like her argument is like 15 years too late.
Should be bra burning in the 60s.
Because,
sorry, that was rude.
Because even a lot of her modern examples, just like a lot of her older examples, were taken completely out of context, and it's not fair to judge things like on the without putting it in its proper context. Like,
right.
It's not.
And you were kind of like, you brought up a good point. A lot of, as video games are developing, a lot of the people responsible for these video games are women. Writers, production, art.
I'd say there's actually some of the biggest writers
are female
in video games right now working are female.
And I guarantee you some of the artists are too, and design
inceptors,
and then you
I think
sit
the tide
there,
is changing. Like,
no,
definitely.
but yeah, and then to sit there and like, oh well, the way you like this woman is portrayed in this skimpy. Well, you know what? There was probably some women had some hands in that.
Oh, most definitely.
Yeah, and then like that's kind of what I was trying to say in the last video with like the whole there can be like a female power fantasy in a way, like it might be perceived a little bit different, but that's kind of
well, like there's this idea that like it seems like Anita might be in this kind of category. I don't know. I wouldn't like to say to speak for her, so I'm gonna like just talk.
Oh, so you're doing something she doesn't do. You're not gonna speak for someone.
No, I'm gonna make an assumption about like. It's almost like Anita's like one of these type of people, and you see this a lot in like more radical like feminist movements that like kind of want like everybody to be androgynous and like asexual, and that like we don't like kind of base some of our like our tastes or attraction to people based on like a physicality. Because like the reason why there's a lot of like skimpy like women, quote unquote skimpy and stuff like that, like video games, whether people like to believe this or not, is probably most of the people that are buying video games are males.
Yeah.
Like, there's a business reason. There's a very, like, clear, like, video games are a business. They are made to make money. Like...
It's like teenage boys.
It's teenage boys. I mean, I think it's starting to shift. And I think even, like, representations of female characters, how they dress in video games and stuff is, like, it's totally changing.
Oh, it is.
And something like a good example is, like, the way that Final Fantasy as a series has progressed.
Yeah, oh yeah, for
you know
sure.
What I mean? Like,
but there are always, I think, if you even look back to the early ones, there's always strong females, or females in the party at least. Like,
in Final Fantasy?
Yeah, so totally. They're not always, and it wasn't always the females getting in trouble with Final Fantasy, being
You might have to save the princess, but you probably have, like, a couple, like, a white mage or something like that, which I'm sure they would make an argument, like, well, she's a healer. Why can't she be the warrior?
Why can't she wield the big...
Well, now she does. So there you go. Like we are progressing as a society in these thoughts.
Why is the Keyblade has to be wielded by a boy?
That's bullshit. That's bullshit. Why is Mickey Mouse king? That dude doesn't seem like he knows what the fuck is going on at any point. No, I'm just kidding. Well, not really.
Should be Goofy.
Fuck this mouse.
Oh my goodness.
Fuck that mouse, man.
Oh my.
You hate mice.
I do, actually. No. That was a weird mouse noise.
Okay, and another thing, I guess, one of the big things she brought up was the mercy killing stuff.
Mm-hmm.
About, somehow you're tasked somehow to, like, have to basically kill somebody because they're turning into a demon or they're suffering in some way, and you're tasked, and then narratively it justifies it because, like, this horrible thing is happening to them, and blah, blah, blah.
I have two things to say to that.
What?
One, if that happens, shoot me in the fucking face.
Okay.
Because who wants to be... No.
Who wants to be an alien hybrid that's, like, in pain?
And that leads me to my next point.
That's what I'm talking about. That's why she's like, the narrative will justify it, but it doesn't mean it's okay.
But then the way it was framed in her argument or discussion was saying that, in some way, it still, like, enslaves you to the, like... the male protagonist helpless. Because she becomes helpless.
Yeah.
Well, no. Honestly, you're being enslaved and you become kind of like in control and subverted by the fucking alien species that is attacking and adapting itself to my body.
Yeah.
So if you want to be literal...
There's one game that she brought up that I totally agree with her.
What?
Duke Nukem Forever. Duke Nukem Forever...
Why are we even talking about Duke Nukem Forever?
Duke Nukem Forever is outdated. It did not know how to handle its humor or update its humor, because there's a way to do a modern Duke Nukem game but it has to be self-aware. Duke Nukem Forever is not self-aware.
That's what I'm saying.
And that's an example of something like being done in that vein, just as poorly written. It's just poorly executed.
Yeah.
I think, like, you know, that's not indicative. But, like, she will lump something like that in with something like Shadows of the Damned as being another immature, really immature, a lot of, like, crude humor, stuff like that. But the thing about that game is very ironic. It takes place in, like, if she knew anything about the creator of the game, or one of the creators of the game, Suda, who wrote the story, Suda51.
Suda51, one of my favorite video game people.
The dude, that is how he makes games.
Starting from even the 2 games he released in Japan before Killer 7 to Killer 7 to No More Heroes to even Lollipop Chainsaw.
Even Lollipop Chainsaw, which is actually James Gunn more than it was.
I know, but I'm just saying he had some influence on it, and I think that, very much, obviously, the influence, just the humor and stuff.
Oh,
and that's what it is, it's humor, and you consider, like I was talking about Lollipop Chainsaw, we could talk about, and there are going to be so many arguments that could be made for how it's a misogynistic, like, game, which it is.
What?
It is.
Lollipop Chainsaw?
Yeah. But people could say that, I'm just...
If they take it out of context.
If they take it out of context, but it's also, like, I wanted to bring up the fact that, like, okay, so we're talking about these males that have to, like, they trap souls of their lovers and, like, blah, blah, blah. This is a girl who fucking learns how to cut off her boyfriend's head and attaches him to the hip because she can't live without him. And, like, keeps him there on her hip. And it's kind of like...
And it's a joke about teenage girls.
Yeah. But, no, and that's what I was... So, even in all of those games, I don't know, one of the best killers in Killer 7 is Kaede.
Yeah.
So, but...
Well, Killer 7 is more, like...
It's a lot different than
than those other ones.
No, I agree, but...
I think the tone is slightly more serious, and it's more of, like, political jokes.
It is.
That's, I'm like, just steeped in Japanese culture that, like, really is lost on pretty much America. It's like, I had read a dissertation about that game to understand that game.
I know. I love that game. It's my favorite.
It's one of my favorites, too.
I know, but I'm just saying, so it's this whole spoof genre, where it's like, that's what I call them, like, spoof genre. Especially, like, No More Heroes.
No More Heroes.
Your power-up is,
like, jerking off. Like, and it's absurd.
It's very absurd.
You can't
feel a little ridiculous
You
playing
cannot play that game and take it seriously. Like, the events that are going on. I think Shadows of the Damned, you can make the argument...
I really liked Shadows of the Damned.
Maybe it's not subtle enough. Like, for some people, I mean, even though, like, to me, like, it's obviously a riff on, like, classic hero stories, action movies, grindhouse movies, and then there's fucking dick jokes left and right. One of your main dudes is called Johnson, and he's, like, basically a phallic symbol that floats next to you.
Yeah, and one of your guns looks like a big penis.
It looks like a big penis, my big boner.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
but also where you're going with that, too, is what happens to... I mean, and I guess no spoilers, but, like...
we're just gonna have to open it. There's spoilers. I'll put it in the description. There's spoilers. But, like, yeah, at the end of the game, you end up having to kind of fight your girlfriend, but not really, and then you kind of save her, and then some crazy shit happens at the end, and it's kind of open-ended.
Yeah. You're not, like, literally...
If my memory serves me correct, it's been a while. Last time I played that, it was when it came out.
And you're correct.
Yeah. I was one of the 20,000 people that bought a copy.
I had it, too.
Yeah, it's because it's... But you can't, like, take that and, like, be like, this is... You have to look at intent. That's when writer's intent, like, is kind of everything.
And this is what brings me back to one of the first things she says in this video is, and I understand she's disclaiming, like, violence against women and kind of gruesome things. And she kind of, like, made it seem like she was pointing towards if young kids are watching, which, honestly, if anyone's letting their young child watch her videos, it's kind of irresponsible.
It's irresponsible because, it's a skewed opinion. It's not,
Well, it's not even just a skewed opinion, but it's just, like, if you're letting your, like, 7-year-old watch this, it's a little crazy. But
a 7-year-old would probably be like, what? You just walk away because it's boring.
Yeah. Nice earrings. No. But, she says that she's only going to show what is necessary, and I understand why she was saying that, because she was trying to say, like, I'm protecting, like, because, like, it's a sensitive subject matter of violence
because she wants
women.
to sell this as an educational tool to be used in schools.
Yeah, I know, but it's funny because I find that she's kind of admitting that she's only showing what's necessary to prove her point.
Oh, it's very convenient because you're not have to show like the gruesome other side of it, or
the complete arc of why that thing is happening.
Yes, or exactly the consequences or like the reaction to it, like cause and
effect,
or the start of it, or anything. Like there's no context.
Just women getting stabbed.
That's pretty much. There's no context to like these things aren't just there. Then when she brushes it aside, like they will narratively justify it. It's like because that's That's what stories do.
The whole little snippet of Twilight Princess where it's just Zelda being possessed and risen up.
Well, at some point she was just doing random. It's just
it was
random clips. Look, this is a woman in a game and she's fighting somebody. Pretty much, really.
And the Psychonauts thing made me sad because I love that game.
Well, but that was a positive example.
Yeah, but she was saying at the same time.
But at the same time, it's no different because
girls can't be sassy.
And that's even out of context because you have to these are kids at a psychic summer camp. This is a 7-year-old girl, and she's smart and quick and witty, but she's not going to be able to overpower this fucking evil overlord
genius
dude
who has this
who's
helmet on her.
Who's captured her?
Yeah.
That's just fucking common sense. That's the context of that scene.
Common sense is not so common.
I guess not. Not when it comes to feminist frequency.
So says Voltaire. I don't know. It is.
I mean, it's you couldn't. It's hard not to just belabor the point because it always goes back to the idea of context and having a fair and balanced view of something. And that's really what is wrong with her stuff because are these things interesting to discuss in just terms of narratives?
Yes.
Or narratives.
Yes.
Or just way stories are told and the kind of things we do and use and stuff. The idea of tropes is interesting to talk about.
Yeah.
And deconstructing those tropes is interesting to do and talk about. But she's not doing that. That's not what she's doing. That's not her. And then at the end of the video, she says, well, I'm not saying that video game creators are consciously doing this or whatever, but then at the same time, she is. Because she had a whole video where she said she was. It was kind of implying and inferring. And the implication that, everybody that, empathizes with these characters, everybody that plays these games, everybody that, feels something towards this stuff is somehow, in the wrong and... for lack of a better word, evil and oppressive is, I think is, you gotta kind of watch when you do stuff like that, especially when you're in a public platform. And
discussing very sensitive matters.
It's something that's a serious topic, and she turns it into internet memes and garbage and throwaways.
Yep.
A larger problem with her stuff, which is aside from her actual discussion, is that, she comes off as condescending, pretentious, smug.
Yeah, what was it?
That the stuff is foregone conclusion. You should never do that when you're having a discussion with people.
Discussing the game where the guy's bionic arm.
Oh yeah, Bionic Commando, your wife passes away, but she doesn't really, and her spirit or somehow is imbued in your bionic arm that gives you these superpowers. But she basically just goes...
And then, puts her head down and,
slaps her forehead.
I do stuff like that all the time, honestly. I've probably done that in these videos, so I can't really say much. But at the same time, it's you're making this...
But not as a scripted event that is poorly acted. That's what it was. I mean, that's how it comes off.
Wait, I gotta catch up with her teleprompter.
Yeah.
No, it's I don't know. It's very rigid and cold.
But it's not discussion based. These are didactic declarations of truth.
They are truth, Sean.
And it's not fair. It's an unfair way to go about it.
No, I agree. I don't know. It's very frustrating. I don't know really what else to say.
No, that's what I mean. You can't. There's only so much you can get into with it without just saying the same thing over and over again. Because a lot of the problems just stem from the same thing. It's context.
And I wonder if now, because I know in the next video, in probably 4 months...
Yeah. The positive examples, right? In games.
Yeah, the positive examples, and then even trying, as she says, to find the male, flip side of it.
The elusive man in captivity.
And she showed Mario and Luigi.
Yeah. She fucking hates Mario.
I know.
She hates him. She's always talking about shit about Mario. Mario's hey!
Maybe she just had bad experience with plumbers in her fancy loft apartment.
I guess, maybe.
In New York,
or Canada. I think she's from Canada.
She would be.
Yeah, she would be.
That's why she wears flannel. That's why she wears so much flannel. She's a lumberjack.
Oh my god. Bigger than hoops. No, another problem is she comes off as somebody that very clearly has not played these games. I don't know what is the research that she's done. Does she have other writers? And I assume she has a production team.
She does, and it's listed in the credits.
Yeah.
But it was directed by her, and I think this is coming off of a dissertation she wrote in college. Because I tried to look her up, just I was curious.
Yeah,
to see.
some people did posted her college thesis paper and stuff.
Yeah, so that
wasn't very good.
Oh, I didn't read it. I just saw that it was related to media, because I think she was a media studies.
It's 25 pages of references.
Yeah, probably. That's what a lot of dissertations have to be nowadays, unfortunately.
Oh yeah, probably. I assume so. Yeah, because you don't want to have like intellectual theft.
Well, no, that's yes.
Because no two people can think the same thing.
Oh no! All thought is original.
That's true. When it comes out of my mouth. True stories.
Shut the front door.
Shut the front door, y'all. What else? There was something else I had in mind that I was also thinking about.
Yeah, there's a lot.
I think she has like a social responsibility to just like actually frame this discussion in a fair way.
Yeah.
She just comes off as like just like she is like the reason that like people fucking give feminists a bad name. She's like part of that group of like radical feminists, like people just like because I equate that just like any like radical religious people, radical political people, like whatever. They're all the same. Like, you have, like, some certain, like, just fucking oppressive agenda that you just will not budge from, and this is the way it is, and no matter what anybody tells you, you're not going to see it any other way.
They're the most closed-minded, open-minded people you'll ever meet, usually.
That's what I always said. Yeah, I always said that about, like, people, like, about liberal, like, total, like, really crazy, like, left, crazy nut, like, liberals.
You could say it on the other end of the spectrum.
And you could say it on the... No, that's what I mean. Like... But liberals posit themselves as being really open-minded. Like, if you have, like, crazy conservatives, they usually are pretty much, yeah, like, we're closed-minded. Like, but, like, the last thing I think I want to bring up is just bring this up another time, is the idea of, like, if you disagree with her, you're lumped into the same, like, category of saying you want to rape and kill her.
I guess that's me.
Sarah was the one trying to leave all these comments.
Get ready for it.
I said, Sarah, what are you doing? And then she's like, I was like, why do you have 65 email accounts? Like, she's like, I have to log in.
Yeah.
Guy, cunt. Like,
she needs to get ready for it.
Be prepared. No, but what I mean is, like, it's unfair, and I think a lot of, like, actually irresponsible of, like, there's a lot of game journalists that are, like, complete fucking idiots that are coming out and, like, defending her and, like, saying that you need to think before you speak to Anita Sarkeesian. But that's internet culture is full of fucking trolls.
I know, and that's what I would like. That's how I guess maybe in some way I would say say something. I wish people would like think or listen to things before they spoke, or just didn't resort to like caveman like.
So what?
You idiot!
But I think me
Grimlock, me king.
I think for every for every like 10 negative, like, just caveman, like, bullshit, asshole trolling, internet trolling, there's probably, like, 2 legitimate, like, responses. And when and by disabling her comments, by silencing her detractors, by, like, just painting herself as, like, this wounded woman, this victim, this damsel in distress.
Yeah, she is becoming a damsel. I think we kind of brought that up last time.
She never has to refute anything. She never has to rebut her argument. The burden of proof is never going to be on her because she's like, everybody is crazy, everybody's out to get me, everybody hates me.
Well, hey, guess what? How do I get on TED Talks?
Well, I don't know how she got on TED Talks. Like, she must know somebody. She must be related to somebody or know somebody. How do you get on TED Talks by having, until this video came out, this last video, her highest like video had like 24,000 views. Like, her subscriber base was like 900 to 1,200 people. Like, it's obviously jumped a lot since then because this has been highly publicized. Like, people publicly were talking about this. Game magazines were talking about it, allow it to be part of the discussion, became, like, bigger than it probably needed to be or should be. And,
No, I don't think it's bigger than it should be to a point, because you do have a lot of people saying crap like this, and I think it is kind of interesting that it does open that field up for, I guess, finally a discussion where, or it's not really, but, like, say example, like, people like this, there's a couple other videos we've seen that people are just talking about it, though, and I think it kind of does need to be, like, because there's a lot of assumptions being made usually.
I think so. Yeah, you're right.
So I don't think it's bigger than it should be.
Well, I think
it's bigger than it.
There's the positive outcome of something like this, right? Like, it'll create, like, me and you could sit here and have this like little chat, and other people can do the same thing. And I think you see a lot of when you see like response videos to Anita Sarkeesian, like people that took time and like sat down, had a discussion, or made a video and edited together. There's not a lot of venom there. There's a lot of like, this is what you're doing wrong. This is why I disagree with you. Here's why I disagree with you. And giving examples and putting it into context and calling her out on things that are fair.
Yeah.
Right? But the problem is, like, if you were to believe, like, some game journalists, or it's the way they talk about it in open forum where they do have a wide audience, that, like, you're all fucking evil little asshole trolls. You need to think about how you treat people and what you say, and not troll Anita. And it's like, well, it's probably not that many people. Like, it's probably it's probably 60-40, 50-50.
It's with anything.
But exactly, like, anything you put on YouTube or you have an opinion about something, there will always be a contingent on people on the internet that will disagree with you. Ooh. Like, I brought this up last time. Like, Ryan and I, like, a year and a half ago, did our best and worst games, or worst and most disappointing games of 2011 or whatever. Yeah. And Uncharted 3 was on there.
Oh yeah.
As being disappointing, not bad, just disappointing. We're disappointed in it. Like,
yeah, and now
it's again something highly anticipated. It like totally we're just disappointed in it. Called like a faggot, like fat fucking idiots. Like you're a fucking moron. Like. That just goes with the territory. Like, what are you gonna do? Or like some guy like giving me shit because I didn't review Silent Hill HD collection correctly. Therefore, I'm a fucking moron, and I shouldn't make videos and these so-called reviews. I was like, dude, it's just like it's not the one you wanted to hear. That's all it was. Because Silent Hill HD collection is people nitpick the fuck out of it, and I didn't do that. And I just we talked about just the legacy of Silent Hill. Because why would I review a game that's fucking 10 years old? Like. So we put it in context and talked about just gameplay mechanics and stuff like that. And the evolution of gameplay mechanics.
And it's not just YouTube. It's anytime you try to go public with
anything.
It's because like I don't really until I met you, I didn't really do any like videos or anything. Yeah. But I had to defend papers publicly, and I got my ass torn into sometimes.
Exactly.
And like while I still felt like what I wrote or like my opinions or whatever I was putting out there or the work I was positing, like. I felt it was correct. I do have to kind of realize that there are people who aren't going to agree with me, or that maybe never thought of it that way and are kind of like shooken up by it.
Yes.
Because sometimes that's what happens when you like see something in a new light or discover something. Is you kind of it's kind of like
sometimes
you get startled.
You get startled and you get indignant about it for a second until you have a chance to step back and think about like what you just heard.
Yeah. And
then give it a chance.
Right, and then knee-jerk reactions aren't always the best, but I mean that's how a lot of I feel thought and the way the world's going is instantaneous satisfaction of how you
feel in the now. It's all about it's Twitter philosophy, and you must be able to describe your emotions in 24 or 140 characters, and
but you just didn't, Sean, so you failed.
So I failed. I made this really overlong video that belabored a point.
We didn't belabor a point.
No, but I think closing off the other side of it, however much vitriol is in there, is not positive for creating a discussion, because you just have to deal with that stuff.
Right.
And the fact that she wants to be a pop culture critic, a feminist, she wants to stand up for what's right, then silencing opposition is not a good example to be setting, right?
Right.
Because that's just all that does is give the example of I'm entrenched in a viewpoint and I'm not going to budge from it and I'm not going to discuss it.
Like I kind of brought up last time,
it's on an ivory tower, basically.
And kind of I guess I brought up last time too, and it kind of goes along with what else we were saying. How you get lumped automatically if you want to play these games, you're act these games that you're these or even respond, if you're going to be this responding or whatever, lumped into a certain
stereotype.
thing. I still feel that way about me because I'm a girl. I have to feel I'm supposed to empathize with this, and it's I find it very. I don't know. I don't.
You feel the need to give it more of a chance because you're a girl,
or it's expected of me too.
I think probably the expectation is there because it's you don't identify yourself as a feminist. Oh no, you're a feminist. You're a feminist. You care about women's rights, right? You just don't know it yet. No, they'll be just whether you call yourself it or not. They'll be no, you're a feminist because you care about female equality. And we talked about this last time.
Yeah, we don't need to do it again.
We believe in people equality. Cross-gender, fucking very progressive, very, very modern.
Fucking hippies.
Goddamn hippie Davids out there smoking their dope, wearing their hemp t-shirts, making rope out of hemp. CIA, COINTELPRO, Illuminati. Well, I think that's probably about going to do it.
Yeah.
I think that's a pretty thorough discussion
of
some of the things we found. And yeah, it's always fun to talk about this stuff. If anything, it gives us something to do, and it's a conversation we enjoy having, but we like to do it in what we feel is the more correct way, as contextual. and have a lot of laughs. Been a lot of fun.
Woo!
But
So I guess we'll talk to you in 4 months.
Yeah, we'll talk to you
when
next year when the next video comes out.
Part 3 of 10.
Which, who knows, maybe we might agree with that one. Be like, oh yeah, you're right, those are positive examples of females. Like, I hope she does. I hope one of this 13 series is like.
Is it 13 or is it 10?
It was 10, and I think as she made so much money, she expanded it to 13.
Man, she better get that shirt dry clean.
Yeah, I know. I
don't mean to be rude. That's really rude and petty. But I just kind of like.
I needed that shirt. It's smelly, and you bought it at Target because I saw the same one. That's the same damn shirt. That's at Target. That's a Target shirt.
I was gonna be funny and buy it.
Yeah, we were. Actually, yeah, we were both gonna wear them and put big hoop earrings. But I think honestly, it's too much. It's too much as being assholes.
It's being catty.
It's being catty, exactly.
Catty bitches.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm Sean.
Sarah.
And thanks for watching, everybody. And I hope you enjoyed it. If you have anything to add, we'd love to talk about it some more. Leave some comments.
Yeah.
Subscribe and like. Because if I don't tell you, you won't do it.
Contribute to our Kickstarter. There isn't one.
There isn't one. Pay our rent.